Hi friends, I'm Zara Durrani and we are continuing our On Location series. Today we're here in beautiful Terrace, British Columbia, and I'm honored to meet with a woman whose hands not only create beauty, but restore legacy. Today in Terrace, British Columbia, I have the privilege of sitting down with Jaimie Davis, an award-winning multidisciplinary artist, solopreneur, and a proud Gitxsan and Nisg matriarch with roots in the Eagle clan and an eagle name that means when the wind blows, everything sprouts. Jaimie carries a creative force that's as powerful as it is healing. Her work is more than wearable art. It's a movement of cultural revitalization, identity, and deep reverence. This is not just an interview. It is a homecoming, a remembering, and a celebration of resilience through art. Let's go meet Jaimie.
So what I said was, good morning, I am happy to see you. My name is Sagait Kabuch. My English name is Jaimie Davis, and welcome to Gitxsan, which is our traditional lahip, which means territory. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me and coming on to our beautiful lahip. I grew up coming here as a child, and it's our fishing hole. That's where we get our winter stock every year, and I've been doing it since I was a kid, and watching my Gitx, which means grandmother, and watching her work on big spring salmon and just being so in awe of her strength, and then seeing my mom be the exact same way and just hoping that I can follow in those footsteps.
What river is this, first of all?
This is, the English name is called the Skeena River. Mm-hmm. We call it the Gitxsan, which means the river of mist. Because there's a mist that rolls along top of it in certain areas.
So the Skeena River runs all through Terrace?
Yes.
So beautiful, it's so calming.
Yeah, and it's very mighty too. Don't let this calmness fool you. It is so strong. You never ever underestimate its strength.
Beautiful. So tell me a bit about growing up here. You were mentioning off camera, you spent a lot of time here over the summers. You know, you learned to fish. Hopefully in the future you can show me. I certainly don't know anything about that, so I'm here to learn from you today, and would love to hear some stories about having this as your playground, this as your backyard growing up.
Yeah, so it's definitely a child paradise. I absolutely loved coming here as a kid. Anytime we'd be driving along the highway, I'd be keeping an eye out for the turnoff, and I would get so disappointed anytime we wouldn't stop in. I would just hope to stop in every single time we traveled. And yeah, like I mentioned, I grew up here and was watching my family work on fish. And what we do is we do set net fishing. So we tie off the net across the river there and take a boat to go check it. And I was always super eager to learn. I wanted to do what my mom was doing, what my Gitx was doing. And finally, they let me go on the boat with them to go across the river and check the net. And I think I was 9 or 10 years old when I went on the boat for the first time and helped with the net. And now as an adult, I'm running the boat, and for the most part, we have an all-women crew. It's myself, my mom, my auntie, my sister when she's here, and we're lucky we have my mom's husband as well. So.
And your mom was so lovely. She welcomed us this morning, and your auntie.
Yeah.
This is so wonderful, and I really appreciate all the support that you've given me even before I arrived to Terrace, in terms of introducing me to local artists and who to meet here, and we've had some great connections. So I would love to talk a bit about your roots that shaped you as an artist and the woman that you are today, your Gitxsan and Nisg roots.
Yeah, so as a child, I was always creating something, anything I could get my hands on, making whatever. Always loved making anything. And then we actually moved to Terrace when I was 10 years old, and somehow that got lost along the way. And I grew up in Terrace, and it's a cellar town, and it was very racist. And looking back, I realized I faced racism on the daily, that it was so normalized. And so as a young girl who has just moved to Terrace and then growing up there, going to school, I really lost who I was, my identity. And, you know, with all the racism that I felt and experienced, it made me feel shame in who I was as a Gitxsan and Nisg girl. And that really messes with you, because you're trying to figure out who you are. You're growing up, you know, you're this little girl coming into a young adolescent, teenager, young woman even, and you're trying to find your place in this colonial world. And so with all of that, I'm so blessed, so blessed. We have this school in Terrace called the Frida Deasing School of Northwest Coast Art. And I went to that school in 2016, graduated in 2019, and it changed my life. That's when I really found myself again, really started reclaiming my identity.
I hear a lot of amazing and acclaimed carvers and artists have gone to that school locally.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely an amazing program, and it just gets better every single year. Like, the skill that goes through that school is mind-blowing. It's amazing to see. Just like from my mentors, Dempsey Bobs, Dan Bevan, Ken McNeil, Dean Heron was in my first year. Like, they helped carve my future by doing what they do. And that is sharing the knowledge and passing it on so that it lives on. And that is a huge part of who we are as Indigenous people, especially as Gitxsan. And we have a word for that, actually. It's called gohiens, which means the responsibility or the duty of passing it on to the next generation so that it continues to live on. And that's how we've survived since the beginning of time. That's how we've survived through colonialism, is because this knowledge has been passed on. I came here as a kid, and that knowledge was passed on to me, and now I'm passing that on to my son and my nieces and nephews. And so it's just a continuation.
Thank you for sharing that. I would love to hear, what are some of your earliest memories of creating and being creative?
Yeah, you know, there's a few of those moments, but the earliest one I remember is I was probably about 8 years old, and we were at my granny's house in Nisg territory. We were up, that's my dad's mom, and all of the cousins were there, and we were always there. We always went to my granny's house, and we would hang out, we would play outside. And one of my cousins had a friendship bracelet kit, and they all had it tied to the drawer, and they were just braiding with a 3-strand. And I was like, that's boring. and I figured out that I could just hold it in my hand. I didn't need that tension from the drawer, from having it tied down. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to try 4 strands and then 5, 6, 7, 8 and see how many strands I could get in. And little did I know that's actually a weaving technique. That's how we make our traditional headbands using cedar. And so that was one of my earliest moments that I remember. And at the same time, I found a red piece of rope and I was like, I wonder how this was made. And so I took it apart and I learned how to put it back together. And that's how we made cedar cordage.
And may I ask how old you were around that time?
I was about 8 years old.
Wow.
8 years old.
So the way your mind worked, you were curious about things inherently and seeing how you could do it, that you were very tactile, like doing things with your hands and making things, which is of course what you're doing now.
Yeah, and like it's easier to connect the dots backwards. And looking back, I did start my art career. I did start reclaiming my identity as an artist and as an Indigenous person, as a traditional cedar bark weaver. So that's where I got my first start, and that was in 2003 when I first really learned how to cedar weave. And when my hands touched the bark, is like they knew what to do. It was like blood memory. And so right then and there, I knew, like, this is my calling. This is who I am.
I would love to hear about your name and the meaning behind your eagle name and how you carry that in your daily life as well as in your work.
So my traditional eagle name is Sagaitkabuk, and I received that name 5 years ago now. And over the course of a lifetime, it's kind of normal for someone to receive 3 to 4 names. And I carried my baby name, which was Chbie, for the longest time.
And what does that mean?
Chbie, it means like in front of the village walking, cawing like the crow. Because, yeah, I grew so attached to that name. And then I received this name. I received my adult name because my uncle, he saw that I was doing a lot. You know, I was present, helping work on fish and showing up in the feast hall, and yeah, just being present. And so he saw that it was time that I finally received my adult name, and I'm actually going to be receiving another name come April 2026.
Do you know what it's going to be, or it's going to be something that they're going to let you know on the day?
I do know what it is going to be. My uncle, he gave me this name before he passed. And it's quite the honor. He was battling cancer for a long time, but he fought it. And he was one of the strongest people I knew. He was larger than life, and he got news that he only had a certain amount of time. And so he, like him and my mom and my auntie, like they met prior, and then he gathered us all and we had a big family meeting, and he started talking about this name, Ligitnisa, which he was telling the history on it, just sharing it, and how there were 3 big eagle names. His name, Sakamigak, which is our big chief. And my my mom's name, Skayan, and then Liginitha. And there were the three big eagle names, and at one point Liginitha was the top. And they fluctuate over time depending on like who's holding the name, or if someone passes away and there's no one to take that name, then it rests for a bit, and so it goes back down, and that's the way it works. And he held both of those names at one point, and he, like back in the 60s, he paid $5,000 for that name in the feast hall. And you know, $5,000, that's a lot today. Imagine how much it was back then, right? And so he carried both of those names, but he was going by Sakamigok for, I'm not sure how long now, for forever. And so he, after talking about the history and telling us the territory that's tied to that name, explaining where it is, and then he looks at me and he's like, Jaimie, I've agreed to give you that name. And I nodded at him in acceptance, and you know, knowing that's a huge, huge responsibility that comes with that name, because now it's going to be up to me to bring that name back up to where it was. So that's what's going to happen come April 2026.
It sounds like you're very connected to your uncle. Was there anyone else in your life, an elder, a matriarch, or mentor who's inspired your journey into cultural artistry?
There's a lot. Like I mentioned earlier, I went to the Frida Deasing School, and those men, they living legends, all of them. So grateful to have them in my life. And like I said, they changed my life. But also, when I was younger, both of my grandparents passed away when I was younger. I was a young teen, 17. And so didn't really have that really strong connection with them, just because, you know, I'm a teenager, you know how teenagers are, don't really care about anything. And yeah, so when I grew up, when I stepped into myself and reclaimed my identity, I have so many grandparents now, so many adopted grandparents. Like I love elders. I love spending time with them. The stories they have, and just laughs all around. And they truly are an inspiration, just to know what they've lived through, especially in this country and colonization, residential schools, and to know that they survived and they carried with them the knowledge that was tried to be stolen from them. Like this country tried to take away everything from us. Our language, our children, the land. But no, here they are, still strong, and passed it on to us. And now we can say that we are still here and we're rising and we're getting even stronger.
Indeed. You work across powerful mediums: cedar weaving, wood sculpture, jewelry engraving. What draws you, we've spoken a bit about this, to each and every one of them, and how do they individually speak to different aspects of you and your heritage? I'm often asked if I have a favorite, and like, how can I even answer that? Whatever I'm doing at the time is my favorite. Like I grew up learning how to weave, even though I didn't know I was weaving. And so just tapping into that with the cedar bark and knowing that it's such a sacred medicine
that's what really led me to this path as an artist and reclaiming myself and learning more. And I don't know, I'm at a loss for words, really. So this is my gyat design, and gyat actually means backbone, more specifically the backbone of the fish. And it's part of my Salmon is Life series, but also the women of my culture are considered to be the backbones of our people. And so ultimately, this design represents strength and resiliency.
Now, you're the sole creative force behind your brand. What have been some of the most meaningful and also challenging parts of the entrepreneurial path?
It's really become my baby. And, you know, when I was younger, I always thought to myself, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to work for anybody. I want to work for myself. I didn't know what that was going to look like back then, but I just always had that thought. And so now it's like, you don't want to work a 9 to 5, so you're working sun up, sundown, and then some.
I feel that so much.
I'm even dreaming of work.
Oh my God, I feel that so much. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But now you don't have anyone hovering over your shoulder, you know, and I'm very grateful for the jobs that I've had in the past that have allowed me to pay my bills. And I feel like I'm finally at that place now that I can be like, okay, there's our gratitude for those jobs because they serve their purpose.
Absolutely.
However, they gave me the contrast, as Esther Hicks would say, you need to have the contrast to see what you like and what you don't like. And there are times I'm up till 2 or 4 in the morning because there's a deadline. You know, something needs to be delivered, or I'm on the road. And when you're working from your heart, I think the heart gives you that energy. When you have 100%. This desire, this passion that is more than just, you know, yes, we all need to make money, but it's more than just the hourly or the salaried position.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something else, that entrepreneurial road. Like, I left a job at the bank, total stability. It was the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, weekends off. It was great. And I saw upward movement in that industry because, you know, that's my way of thinking, right? Like, I go into something and I know I can excel in anything I put my mind to. And then I looked around and I saw myself there in 20 years. And I was like, do I really want to be doing this for the rest of my life? And then it must have been my spirit just calling me back, because while I was at work, I actually applied for the free-to-teaching school.
Love that.
Got accepted, and everything just worked out, and I quit my job 2 months early, and I enjoyed the summer before I went to school in the fall. Yeah, and so with that is, I bet on myself. I 100% bet on myself. I didn't have the stability of that paycheck, of how much money I was going to get in 2 weeks. I was going to school. And of course, being an artist, there was always that stigma when I was growing up of the starving artist. You can't make a living with your art. And so I grew up not ever thinking I could be an artist. It was not a thought in the back of my head whatsoever. It just wasn't there. And so going against all of that, it's like, you know what? Just bet on myself, and I dove in head first and did my 3 years at the free-to-teaching school, won an award in my last year, and just rolled into the full-time self-employment after that. And 6 years later, here I am, still doing the thing, still loving it as much as ever, and it's been an amazing ride.
I want to hear, how does it feel to see others wearing your art, wearing your jewelry, carrying pieces of your story, your culture on their bodies?
6 years later, and it still blows my mind. I'll see someone out there, I'm like, hey, those are my earrings.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so proud, right? Like, because with my jewelry, I'm not just making a pretty piece of jewelry to wear. Each piece, it does tell a story. It shares a part of our history. And I do have a worldwide audience, like I've shipped worldwide. And so I'm sharing a piece of my culture with the world and letting the world know that we are still here. And so just like seeing it out there in the wild is, there's nothing quite like it.
It inspires you, gives you energy to continue doing what you're doing.
It really does.
Your pieces feel ceremonial, sacred even. How do you approach the intersection of tradition, identity, and commerce? Like, you know, mentioning that you have an audience around the world, and not just here, not just in Canada. How do you approach that?
With our art, there's definitely ceremonial pieces and then not. And I think, you know, back in the day before colonization, it was all ceremonial. Each piece had a purpose, whether it was cedar weaving. We would make the hats, robes, aprons, mats, like birthing mats, or, you know, a mat for the floor, baskets, and then the tree. Cedar tree is called the tree of life because it was used for everything. The cedar was used for carving, the poles, masks, the bentwood boxes. So everything that we made, it served a purpose. And I've actually been thinking a lot about this lately because I haven't actually done a whole lot of carving since I graduated school. I helped on a panel, a large scale panel with my mentor, Ken McNeil, and the piece is now up in the library at the college, Coast Mountain Community College. And that was the last thing I did. I think that was in 2020. But I think like the way I view carving is I want it to be ceremonial. I don't want it to be just a pretty mask that goes up on the wall, just like how my jewelry is not just a pretty piece of jewelry that you wear. It has meaning, it has a story, it has the history behind it. And you know, like this just goes into me digging into myself and who I am as an artist and how I want to create art. And so it has nothing to do with anybody else and how they create art. You know, creating art is beautiful in all its forms. And so this is just about me and how I perceive it. And also, like, I haven't actually joined song and dance before, the traditional song and dance. And I've always wondered, like, why? Because I absolutely love it. I love the beat of the drum. Anytime I'm at these festivals, the music just, just like I feel that in my soul, my entire being. I'm like, why aren't I out there dancing? And
perhaps that will be the next step. Like, who knows?
Maybe, but just like going back to our history and how masks were carved, like we would carve masks for entertainment purposes too. Like we would have shows put on and there would be someone with a mask on and it would be a transformation mask and it would like open up into something else, or we would have like puppets, right? And we don't see that anymore. At least I haven't seen that around here. I've seen that in, where is it now? Tlingit area. David Boxley Jr., actually, he is one of my biggest inspirations on that. He does things traditional, and that's the way he carves, and because he wants to bring back that historical aspect of it, and it's so beautiful. And I'm like, okay, I think that's what I want to do too.
I love that.
Yeah. So
it's like constantly growing, evolving, and being inspired, and knowing that you don't have to be stuck in one thing. Like for me, for a long time was, I am the on-camera talent. I can produce things, but I don't do camera work. And I realized that that was limiting. So now this whole season, this whole series, I've been filming. I've been doing all the things, and it's, I gotta tell you, but it's that growing, the evolve. What can I learn? How can I be better at what I do? How can I become a better storyteller? Well, I'm looking forward to visiting your studio and checking out more of your jewelry. Before we let you go, if you could speak directly to young Indigenous artists watching this who may feel uncertain or unseen and unsure about perhaps following their heart's calling, or maybe they've started out and maybe they're struggling, what would you say to them?
I would say, believe in yourself. I believed in myself, and I bet on myself, and it was the best thing I could have ever done. My life changed for the better, and you know what? You belong here. You belong in this space. So take up this space, own it, because it's yours. And I know when I was growing up and reclaiming my identity as an artist, I felt imposter syndrome quite often. And even when I won Best Solopreneur with Small Business BC, I still felt like, did I really deserve this? And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And you know what? Heck yeah. Yeah, I deserved it. I worked damn hard for it. But I would also like to say, if you come across a hurdle, find a way to get over it. If you can't jump around it, go around it, go under it, find a way. Don't let it stop you in your tracks. You know, sometimes it's just redirecting you into something better, something different that's going to help you evolve into your greatest self. So just keep going.
Completely. Well, I think that's a great way to finish up our episode here. I truly appreciate you taking the time, Jaimie. Thank you so much for welcoming me. Thank you for coming out to pick me up super early in the morning, for all the phone calls, the Zoom calls that we had to organize this, and, you know, to watch the sunrise with you, to sit here looking at the eagles, looking at
it's been amazing.
Skeena River, to meet your family. What an honor. Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming here and allowing me to share a part of my story. It's the honor's been all mine. So.
It's likewise. I feel, and especially as we were talking and the eagles were just flying.
Yeah.
Like this level, like 3 of them. That makes you feel like, okay, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing. And you know, I feel like they're welcoming me here in Terrace, so I feel very blessed. And I think it was the right decision to come out this way.
Yes. Yeah, we could have gone to Ferry Island. We still would have been on the Skeena River, but we wouldn't have been here.
No. Well, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.